Don't worry, you can sit back and relax. We'll carry the show for you tonight.
Appreciate that. No intro music, no intro screen. My God, what Mickey Mouse production we have here.
Well, yeah, I mean, for as long as it's been, everybody's probably going to wonder if we even know what we're doing or remember how. But it looks like we've tricked 6 people into showing up. Or the early returns. Good. 6 eyeballs. So that's good.
That's good.
And
it's 12 eyeballs unless they're missing some.
That's true. That's true. AI is not that smart yet. But just to kind of set the stage for tonight, taking a page out of Jason's playbook. A couple weeks ago, Jason did the same thing. Felt, life gets busy. You want to hit a regular upload schedule. You actually don't have worthwhile content to put up, which is me this week. So I wanted to keep feeding the algorithm to make YouTube recognize that on the 8th and the 23rd of the month, something comes up on my channel. Something goes out on my channel. So figure we do live streams. So welcome in, everybody. And I guess we'll go around the horn, do introductions just in the event there's someone who sleeps under a rock and doesn't know who each of us are. But Jason, why don't you start?
Hi, I'm Jason.
Beard guy and bald guy.
What was the show that you and I did, Ryan? Once upon a time, it was 2 bald guys in flannel shirts.
It was two men in flannel shirts get angry at stuff. Or...
Anyways, yeah, I'm Jason, Olde Carr Guy here on YouTube. I have a YouTube channel, and Grant's past and future co-host on an endeavor that we'll be looking after here coming up this fall. Ryan, down below here, being our producer / entertainment
studio engineer,
whatever you want to call him. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan of Everything's Broken Garage. We kind of have a YouTube channel, I guess. Myself and my former co-host Sean, who now lives about 10 hours away from me. Thanks. Yes, we have. As you can tell, I also dabble in the retro tech. So most of my stuff now is retro tech oriented with a smattering of automotive. But I do like to hang out with these 2 goons every now and then. Had to use an appropriate term there that wouldn't upset the algorithm. You can follow me on YouTube and FaceCrack, and I think we're still on the Insta Cloth thing. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's Insta Papyrus now is what it's
Insta Papyrus?
Yeah, that's what it is, yeah.
Insta Meta.
Insta Tablet.
So. Using a chisel to tell you what I ate today for supper.
Yeah.
Kevin L., welcome to the chat.
I guess the Stone Tablet would be more Twitter, and Instagram would be more Etch-a-Sketch, probably. Would probably be.
All I know is I still think Facebook is new, but my students are all like, Mr. Hayward, that's ancient. That's for old people. I'm like, wow. I remember when Facebook was founded.
Yeah, so all we're going to do now is when we want to change things, we just, give it a shake. Hopefully it disappears. What I do.
We all can't be green screen champions like yourself.
Sure we can.
Yeah, well, so that's the irony of the situation of why the live stream's happening tonight. So my upload, what I was trying for my upload to be, was building my new podcast backdrop for our next endeavor. But here, since I didn't get that done, and since as far as I got was I basically just cleaned up clutter in my garage and prepped the site. I'm like, this is going to be really lame episode. So why don't we just go live? So that's what tonight's about.
Wow, Jason's new house, it's fancy.
Late breaking news.
Oh God.
What about so do we want to tease the new endeavor a little bit since the 3 of us are here? Do we want to do a little peek behind the curtains?
Well, for all 8 people who are watching us right now, we could probably tell the whole freaking story, and it would never go any further than these 8 people.
Right. Unless people watch it after the recording.
Hey, I can pull it down too. So,
true story.
I think we could. We can tell. We could talk about it because we're going to be doing promo videos, kind of building up to the launch date of what's happening. Grant, you can probably just tell as much as you want. If we want to just kind of go through and say what we're doing, we can go ahead and do that.
Yeah. How about this? How about before we dive super deep into it, we lob to the crowd for now to start thinking about what topics maybe they would like to would be interested in for the new endeavor. So we'll just put it this way. It'll be much like the early years of the CarrGuy SixFan show, where we kind of pick some topics out, and hopefully there's a little bit of opposing opinions on it between the three of us. And like, for instance, in one of the ones that we've done a practice go run at was plucking an episode from the Get Out and Drive. Of course you will, Bill.
Hey, Bill.
Loose
Big mouth.
Yeah. He just, of course, his what was, when we were with him on Jeff's show, what was it? He dabbles in cordless drills. Is that what he landed on? So the algorithm didn't get upset.
I don't remember.
Pew pew.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
Anyway.
We use the term pew pews just so that we wouldn't trigger anybody.
Yeah.
The algorithm shut us down early or whatever.
So yeah, we'll pick some topics, car-related topics to kind of debate, and kind of break them down into like further detail, like what constitutes patina. Cordless. There you go.
That's apropos.
Yeah. So as Grant mentioned, we have joined forces with the Get Out and Drive podcast. And as you guys know, I'm a co-host over there. So John and Joanne over at the Get Out and Drive podcast wanted to do something more YouTube and video based under the umbrella of the Get Out and Drive podcast. And because their schedule is so wicked busy doing what they do over there for their daytime jobs or their actual income, it's hard to, carve out that small little bit of time that it takes to put things together. So we've been going on every 2-week basis right now with the Get Out and Drive podcast to record podcast topics that are interesting for everybody. And so every 2 weeks we kind of get together to do that. Grant and I were kind of jonesing a little bit for some alone time live.
Yeah, when you say it that way, that's
and Ryan wanted to jump in and run the camera, so I don't know. We're digging deep here. No, so we just decided that we really missed doing what we did with the Get Out and Drive, with the CarrGuy SixFan show. That we said, look, we work well together on camera. Let's put something together that is basically related to what we were doing, with the help of Ryan as our producer engineer, to try and pull something together kind of on the fly that allows us to have that same time frame that we had years ago for 3.5 years. Grant, we did 7 o'clock Central on the Get Out and Drive. Oh my God, I want to keep saying Get Out and Drive. CarrGuy and SixFan show on Thursday evenings, and we alternated. So what we're going to be doing is taking a similar format, jumping over to the Get Out and Drive podcast YouTube channel and doing our production there. So it's one space every time we do an upload. You don't have to go hunting for us. We'll be operating as I don't even know I want to give away what we're doing, what we're calling it, but I really want to. But we'll hold on to that.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah.
Why don't we just call it Project Jason Runs Out of Gas?
Yes, because that's generally what happens when you run out of gas one time, and apparently it becomes a thing.
Or you're never going to live it down. And it wasn't once; it was twice, and almost a third time. With that,
that or Grant can't complete a brake job or can't tune a car.
I was going to say Project Grant uses a curb,
and currently can't sell a car. Apparently.
Yes, we should circle back to that and have a discussion about your car.
We should.
So, can anybody guess what I'm drinking tonight?
Moosehead. Dale
anybody
Jr.
Care to guess what color the can is? Seeing how I'm running a green screen.
The problems of green screens.
Oh,
the funnier part is that literally the scene we're looking at is in front of you right now.
Yeah.
Is it not? Well, maybe the cars are different.
Or over your left of you.
My left. Yeah. So for those who don't know, I run a little studio booth that when I'm looking at the camera, I'm looking out the middle bay of my garage. However, because of green screen, I can actually display whatever I want in behind there.
So yeah, if anybody in the chat wants to throw out a topic,
100% will.
You would love to, have us, we'll say, break down on the future podcast of some sort. Why don't you, we're looking for topics anyway. Like, we're gonna try to,
I guess, like, what is a muscle car? What is a mini
what
truck?
makes a truck a truck? Yeah,
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, things like
that kind of stuff.
What will never be a truck?
Right.
I think the other thing is just to, get you guys prepared in the crowd is, like, we love the live format and we love interacting with you, but sometimes it's hard, even with the three of us. Like, having Ryan will help, being a producer, to like monitor the chat and stuff. But our goal, so tell us if this is a bad idea. We will probably pre-produce our episodes in a more traditional podcast format, and then we will run it as a premiere on the Get Out and Drive YouTube channel. But then that way it frees up Jason, Ryan, and myself, where really one of us, if all three of us can't make it on a given night, just one of us could interact in the chat while you guys are watching the replay. But if you guys don't like that, by all means, we're open to hear from the fans. But that's what we think we're going to try to do out of the gate, is pre-produce. And then that way it can be regular for the Get Out and Drive channel, gets a regular, like, weekly content. But we can kind of produce these on a Thursday night, maybe record two shows at once. But
yeah, and the biggest benefit of that is because of time constraints on both parts or all three parts, we can get together for a 2, maybe a 3-hour session, pump out 2 or 3 episodes, pre-produce them, and have them ready to roll, versus having to have something every Thursday night like we were doing with the CarrGuy SixFan show. Granted, we did that 95% of the time unprepared, but we always pulled it off and we always enjoyed doing those shows. But sometimes it just takes way too much effort for the scheduling to get everyone together at the same time.
And especially when you had a guest, if you were trying to get these guest schedules. I mean, there were times where some people would back out last minute and you'd be kind of struggling to find. So the pre-production definitely helps with that kind of stuff too.
We actually had pretty good luck. Like, Jason, I don't remember. I feel like we only really had one person bail on us, and I couldn't even tell you who that person was. But I think we had historically pretty good luck.
Okay.
Where it fell apart, where the CarrGuy SixFan show fell apart in the final season, what we were trying to do was be like industry spotlight. We were trying to highlight an actual, like, someone associated with a company. And the thought was we could get like product sponsorship deals. And it worked. It actually worked. Like, we got really cool stuff out of it. But I think we got like 5 episodes in, and then that's when it was hard to land. Like, if it was like people like iScript Garage were easier to land than like so and so at Billy's AMI.com, or
wherever.
Yeah. But we had a fun time doing it. And so Paul brought up a good topic. So I don't know who's writing notes tonight. I kind of want to make our producer do that.
I will learn to copy paste. Stand by.
Screenshot.
But Paul, I think that's a really good one. Like, one of the taglines I like to use: offbeat hot rodding and odd body cars. This is what I use for this era, but we could expand it a little more. It's one and the same. It's kind of the same thing. So that's a good one. I like that topic.
Yeah, and again, talking, we've already kind of dropped some hints on some of the episodes that we're kind of gearing towards, and one of those, which may premiere the new show, is muscle cars. We talked about that. We've done a kind of a quick fly practice episode just to try and get our groove back together, and talking a little bit about, what is a muscle car. There's lots of people out there who coined that phrase. We know what the definition is, kind of by the law of hot rodders, what a muscle car is. But by today's standards, those rules really have changed. We talk a little bit about that. So I think that's really a fun topic to jump into. Malaise era is right along those same lines. People don't even know really what malaise is. I'm not sure I even know what it means, but I know what the era is. I know what the cars are.
So I think the like Webster's dictionary explanation, malaise just means bland.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Sorry, Ryan, you seemed like you wanted to say something there.
No, I was going to say it meant bland.
Yeah.
Bland and underpowered usually is the, you know.
So one of the other reasons why we haven't like just launched into this full bore is Jason and I want to make a conscious effort to make it like noticeably different than the CarrGuy SixFan show. We didn't just want to change the name, and it's you guys get to stare at my master bedroom door and my master bathroom door. Actually, I think I reversed that. That's part of why I'm trying to build a new podcast backdrop. And, now that Lori G. Pre's kind of done and up for sale, like now I'm eliminated the excuses. Why can you not now work on that and things like that? And then having Ryan on board, we've been playing around with how does he help enhance the conversation with having visuals to be able to pop up like midstream. And that's part of, yes.
Yeah, it's a rave.
Yeah, the dancing girls will be here any minute now. Just hold your breath.
Hold on. I'll get the. I got the remote that gives me the dance lights.
Yeah, there you go.
See, and Will brings up a good point too. Is like it's a moving target because there's, luckily, I think for the better. Luckily, there are two eras of muscle cars. Like I think for the longest time, like when the Crown Vic was your second choice for rear wheel drive V8 car in 2002. I don't think anybody really ever thought there would be another muscle car era. Like it was just, it happened and it was done and it was over and that was it. Detroit was always going to suck, but luckily.
but then you had like, and I think we didn't even really talk on this, but the Europeans kind of stepped in and Mercedes took the mantle up for a couple of years. They were in the early to mid aughts, right? With some crazy, rear wheel drive, AMG, hammer type, or saloons. Right.
Yeah, and not even just European shit boxes. These were like those AMG Mercedes with their, I don't know what size V8s they had. I think they were a small V8, but
6.3.
Yeah, they sounded like a friggin' workhorse. They just pounded, man.
Yeah, but even Audi came out with a 4.3 liter V8 that is punches well above its weight for power. Want to know where Ryan got that awesome computer green screen? This took a lot of collecting. It's not a green screen. This is actually. See, look, I can open this off, but that's not a green screen. It's a very interactive green screen.
That is a cassette tape drive for PC.
Yes, that's how you saved your files. You saved them on cassette.
Hey, Katarina, welcome back. Long time no see.
Yeah. But yeah, so in those cases, Detroit maybe you dropped the ball, but I think Mercedes was there to pick up the mantle and Audi to some extent, but then of course you had the resurgence of the rear wheel drive, quote unquote muscle car there towards the end of the early aughts. So
the irony there is sort of like this, it's like a bookend story, right? Because the muscle car era died because of basically the OPEC, the oil embargo, right, in the 70s. And then Detroit started losing market share to the international market, mostly Japan.
Right.
But then, to your point, Ryan, like what got America back into the muscle car era was realizing how they were losing market share to Europe because Europe was starting to like harness the but you can still do high horsepower.
You can be efficient and still have fun, right?
Yeah, and the whole point to that is like without the oil embargo in the early 70s, without the fuel crisis and prices skyrocketing and insurances saying you guys need to detune, you need to figure out a way, we wouldn't have such iconic cars as the Grand National. We wouldn't have certain things like the turbo, what was it, the turbo Camaro? The Camaro had a turbo there in the early 80s. Like,
yep.
They were pieces of crap, but still, We
Hey,
wouldn't have
the 301 turbo, like the 301 in my Grand Prix. Don't dog on the 301. Hey, by the way, yesterday I drove it to like a midday meeting because I usually work from home on Mondays. I drove it, and for whatever reason, I'm at this stop sign, and I'm like, "There's nobody around." Like, we'll just see if I can power brake it. I don't think it can. Dropped it in low, and it started to squeal. Like, holy shit! This is actually do a burnout.
One wheel peel.
Well, so I did it at a second stoplight. And I looked in the rear mirror. I was like, wait, are there 2 tire tracks? I was like,
No way.
wait, I know. So I got to get a third one and put a set of camera up.
Hey,
So.
if you didn't record it,
I would say it didn't happen.
It didn't happen.
No, I know. But the second time when I did, I was like, well, maybe that's the content for my 23rd of the month.
There are these things called shorts. Where
right.
Videos like that are fantastic.
Right. I just didn't have a tripod, but like honestly, like the second stoplight that I did it at was 2 or 3 miles from my normal go-to industrial side road spot.
Mexico?
Doing my burnouts. Yeah. Like
Your Mexican location.
I was like, if I only had a tripod, I could just shoot that short now.
Now,
like,
I will also say, Grant, there's a website called Amazon, and there's lots of really cheap electronics from China there. You can get yourself a dash camera that will film in 4K, and it's pretty good video footage that you could use for such videos.
Or you can just take your phone and you can hold it out the window here.
Yeah, I can't imagine there's much torque here with her. I can't imagine you're fighting the steering wheel while doing a burnout.
The fact that I know it can break the tires loose is win number 1 because it has like I looked up the rear end code and I swear it has like higher than 273 gears. Like I think it's like a 247 gear. So the wheel speed, right, is what's good for burnouts is when you can have higher wheel speed. So it may actually, it might take a long time to get there, but once I get there, I might be able to spin those wheels at like 70 miles an hour.
The other option is a little bit of ATF.
Yeah.
Just squirt it on the tire and
take a bottle of water with you.
Yeah.
Or if you no water, just
Speaking of that, though, this might be a good topic to launch, and I'd love to hear each of you guys share stories. So, like, as soon as you said that, Ryan, it reminded one of my dad's like. So I'm a '90s. Born in the '80s, grew up in the '90s kid. So that puts like my dad's like 30 years older than me. So he was going through high school. He graduated in 1971. So like height of the muscle car era, right? So like all of his stories are born out of doing shenanigans in 1969, 70, 71-ish as a high schooler, right? So like his best friend in high school had a 1970 Chevelle SS,
of course,
but it was only a 396 instead of the SS 454 LS6 version.
Only.
Like, but if you think like if you like just stop for a second, like, wait, it was realistic that a 19-year-old could buy that car in 1970, right? So anyway, my dad, one of 8 farm kids. What he drove around in high school was a 62 or 3 Biscayne, 6-cylinder, 3 on the tree. And one of his historic stories. So this is one of these stories he tells of just his high school years, right? When I'm growing up as a kid in the 90s, and we're like, oh, yesteryear sounds so awesome. Like I get to hear all of the stories of the muscle car era. Right. So he shows up like small rural town outside Wichita. And there was this little general store. He rolls up and sees like 2 or 3 of his friends just hanging out in front of the general store, just like kind of like, man, life sucks, man. There's nothing to do. So bored. And he's got his Biscayne. Like they all have the hot cars, like the 70 Chevelle. Another one of his friends had like a 69 Camaro. The next one had like some Mopar product. I want to say it was a Dart or a Demon or something. And he's like, what the hell's wrong with you guys? You look like your puppy just died or something. And he's like, all like, what's wrong? He's like, oh, there's nothing to do. This is so boring. And so my dad's Biscayne, it leaked oil. So he just had a case of oil in his trunk at all times. So he's like, I'm going to fix this. And so he like goes, pulls over to the side, like puts his car up on jack stands, gets a quart of oil out and just douses both tires, leaves it a little bit on the jack too, and just drops it in low and does this big gnarly burnout. And his friends are like, Oh hell yeah! So then they
on
all
Bioslides.
get into it, right? And then they roll out their cars and they're just doing gnarly burnouts in this little town, right? So it had like two highways that came intersected at like an angle. It was called like Crossroads, and one of the directions was a thoroughfare to like the lake, and he was just like that intersection was just filled with smoke for like hours that day, and people heading back from like, what the hell's going on? Is there a building on fire? Like what? So I'm just kind of curious to hear from you guys. Like, do you guys have any iconic stories, either of your own or like that your parents would tell them, like, are hot rod related?
I know my dad, growing up, he had Chevelles, but unfortunately they were 4 doors. I think one of them was a 70.
This is the debate we need to have. 4 doors is not a handicap.
It's a crew cab.
Exactly.
It's a crew cab Chevelle,
more women.
I can't remember what year it was. It was like a 68, 69, 70 maybe Chevelle 4-door. But it had a V8, and he had 2 of them. One was a parts car, and he only had one 4-speed transmission. So he'd like get off work and he'd go home, and in about an hour and a half, he'd have the 4-speed swapped out of one car and put into the other one. He'd take off for the weekend, go out burning rubber, smoking tires, doing all this stuff. And then for traveling back and forth to community college, he'd swap the automatic back into it.
That's funny.
to get the fuel mileage or whatever he was doing. Cause he said, if I had a manual in that thing, he's like, I'd be burning it in all 4 gears.
Fair enough.
But that's the way he did it. He says, in the run of a summer, or in the run of a summer, he said, you burn through all your tires on the 2 cars. And by the time it was time ready to go back to school, he says you were, hitting the junkyards looking for some decent tires for that.
That's funny.
Oh, but when I was in high school, of course, I graduated in 94. And in 94, I had an 83 Dodge pickup. So back then, it was only like, 11 years old. Today, in 2024, I don't own anything newer than 20 years old. I'm like, how are we going backwards here?
I'm not saying they built it better back then, but
how about you, Ryan? You got any good stories like that from
my parents, my mom and my dad are not. They're more academic than they are mechanical, I guess. I don't know where I get it from. My grandfather apparently was fairly mechanical. I never met him. He passed away in 1970. But my father's first car was a 1935 Packard. So my dad was born in 46, so he would have got his first car at 16, which would have been 62. 60. Math is hard. 62 or 60. Anyway, sometime in the 60s he bought it. But it belonged to a preacher. So he's a good Catholic guy, good Catholic, young, upstanding Catholic man, buys a preacher's car. So him and his best friend went in on it. I think they paid like $400 for it or $500 for it. But it still had the Jesus fish welded to the bumper. And at that time, it was welded to the bumper. There was no getting it off. They tried to get it off. They tried prying it off. Anyway, they used to get pulled over by the police all the time because there was 2 young guys driving around in an old 30s Packard that had a Jesus fish on it. The cops thought for sure they had stolen it. And I remember Dad would always say they lived at the bottom of a hill, and his best friend just lived a couple of houses up from him. His best friend would come home after work, having used the car to go to work, completely emptied the tank, and left it at the bottom of the hill. So my father would have to walk down the hill, figure out that it was empty, walk back up the hill, get a can of gas, come back down, fill it up, then drive it to the petrol station. But I remember that was one of his favorite memories was owning this this Packard, which I can only imagine. We don't have pictures of it, but I only imagine it was weird to see a 30s car driving around in the 60s, especially two young guys driving it, and not hot rodded, I guess, because traditionally that would be one that would, fenders be ripped off and big V8s be jammed down on it, and it would be a traditional hot rod. But yeah, that was one of my dad's. And then when my parents first met, they had a Galaxy. My dad drove a big, I think it was a 70 maybe Galaxy or 69 Galaxy, and then they went to Toyota and never looked back. So, and here we are.
Right. Ryan, I feel like we need to come up with a nickname for the Jesus fish, like the Bartholomew Cuda or something.
Yeah. It needs to be like what I need to do is I need to go find a 35 Packard and weld a Jesus fish to the bumper.
Weld it too.
And well, my dad's name was Patrick, so we'll just call the car Patrick. And that's Patrick.
Yeah,
he's got a Jesus fish. We just don't talk about it.
I'm sure Paggards are pretty easy to come by in Newfoundland.
Oh yeah, none of them rotted away at all.
Like the production numbers must have been high to begin with up there for sure.
Have you seen what Ryan drives?
Yeah. Actually, I believe the preacher was American and brought the Packard with him because it was a fairly weird car. And Dad did say getting parts for it was not hard, but it was not as common as say if it was a Chev or if it was a Ford or if it was a Chev and Ford. Because really that was the only two brands that were here. So that and Land Rover in the 60s, they were fairly available.
And generally speaking, you don't voluntarily go to Newfoundland for anything.
No,
I mean, I'm just
he was definitely voluntold.
Voluntold. I mean,
well, funny thing is, so I do a lot of work with a lot of Catholic organizations, and a lot of the Catholic religious groups view Newfoundland, even up until several years ago. A lot of them have a missionary portion of their religious formation, and Newfoundland would get you your third world country missionary status.
Which was probably like winning in the margins too, because this is the closest third world country, which is a province of Canada.
Yeah. So I know, like in the 60s, the Jesuits would view your time in Newfoundland as being, you covered your missionary requirement to become a Jesuit priest if you served time in Newfoundland.
I've never seen a moose. Let's go to Newfoundland. We'll see all kinds of moosin'.
Yeah, moose. Most of them we, hit with our cars. Hence my Volkswagen bus.
Well, Ryan, you threw it. Sorry, Jason.
Sorry, no, I was just making a wisecrack.
Ryan, you had thrown out the topic of, and the chat kind of started to gravitate towards it about the four doors not being so, not being so
desirable,
taboo over time. And it's funny because I think it loops back around to the earlier conversation we were having about Mercedes AMG sort of brought America back into the muscle car era, and then also you have to credit Daimler's influence, right? Like buying Chrysler, and then it was really the I'm going to get this wrong because I don't know Dodge leadership well, but I'm just going to call it the Dodge brothers. The new round of marketing they did when they did bring back this third Jim Hemi, and they had everything all of a sudden it was just high horsepower again. But you have to almost credit that probably doesn't happen if Daimler doesn't buy Chrysler, and this European-based entity is not probably looking at, hey, Mercedes is doing this. Why aren't we?
But you remember too that Mercedes and Chrysler and Daimler were partners in a bunch of vehicles, especially around the middle of the aughts. The Chrysler Crossfire, that little tiny convertible thing they were making, that is an AMG or an SLK 55. It's the small coupe convertible that Mercedes was making, right? There was a lot of, so I think there was some oh, what are you doing over there? That's interesting. And Chrysler realized, oh, we could do that too.
It's just a full circle conversation, right? Because what really made four doors cool, period, was, in my opinion, the Dodge Charger. There you go. Well, I was gonna, in America, is the Hemi powered Dodge Charger. They, it was the retro styling thing was getting popular. Mustang started to do it. Ford started to do it with the Mustang, and then the Camaro. But Dodge was like, well, let's bring back the Charger, and then idiots, he brought it back as a four-door. You guys are nimrods, right? Ford's got it right, Chevy's got it right. What are you doing bringing this four-door back? But then as time went on, everybody's you see how big just that subculture is of Dodge Chargers alone.
But you look at the age group, people getting into it. They're 35, 40-year-olds. What do they have? Kids. What do they need to put the kids in the back seat? Have you ever tried to put the kid in the back seat in a two-door car? It's like Greco-Roman wrestling.
Right. Well, we talk about the advertising aspect of everything. I did a short, quite a while ago, a few months back, talking about Chrysler and the Hemi. And to date, as far as I can remember, I don't think there's been a more effective advertising campaign than the third gen Hemis coming back in modern vehicles, right? Like you got these guys roll up to a stop sign and one guy says to the other, "That thing got a Hemi." And there was a whole stem of advertising campaigns that led from, does that thing got a Hemi?
Right.
Right to the Dodge truck pulling up the stop sign and Buddy pulls up in a friggin' drag rail car.
Yeah.
Right. And the question is, that thing got a Hemi? And like Chrysler did that. SRT with all their big V8 heavy power, modern muscle.
The best one though, SRT Neon.
Yeah, well, even still.
No, I know.
Like that campaign, you didn't see that in Ford when Ford brought on the EcoBoost. You didn't see that in GM when the new LS powered pickup trucks came into the market.
Right.
Like Hemi was Hemi. Hemi had a reputation for being powerful and iconic, and Dodge carried that on in that new generation of pickup and into their cars and everything.
And to kind of circle that back, so I think where Dodge did a great job, and it's because of the engine. It is the engine choice. Every time you say Hemi, you got to drink. If you go back a little bit, we were talking about the retro styling. Other than the Mustang, which did have a V8, you look at the PT Cruiser, you look at the PT Prowler. None of them had a V8, right?
No.
So I think that's where the original throwback to the retro styling failed for a lot of the companies that did it. They just didn't put a V8 in it. And then once they started putting V8s and things, they're like, oh, well, this is what people want. They want the big muscle car, front engine, rear wheel drive, automatic if you like that kind of thing, standard if you don't.
So that's another good topic, I think, is the history of retro styling.
Yeah.
Right. Because I would say probably ground zero is the Prowler, I think.
I would say Prowler, but then I would also say like the Pontiac Aztec kind of is. and again,
what, retro styling a dumpster? Like, I don't.
I mean,
I think it's of the time. PT Cruiser, the same thing. I think it's of the time.
But what was the Aztec trying to bring back? What style?
Nothing. It was just the idea of the same thing with the HHR. What was that bringing back? Nothing. It was just retro style.
1940s Chevy panel van.
Sure. If front wheel drive.
Anyway. But what I was getting at though is it's all. But now, okay, so again, as we were talking about Facebook at the beginning, we're now all acknowledging, okay, that's actually 20 years old, and we're ancient people here.
Yeah.
I would equate this idea of retro styling, right? As it's like movies. We're getting to that point where oh wait, they're bringing back
Beetlejuice.
The bring back, right? It was Bat or the Spider-Man franchise, right? You hadn't seen one for 30 years, and they brought Spider-Man hit the silver screen. They're like, oh, but now they're remaking Spider-Man again. So what's retro styling, right? Because it's a circular thing, right? Now we're gonna probably retro style in 2020.
So just to say, no, the Prowler came out in 1993. That's 30 years ago. So
it hit Detroit's Auto Show in 1993, or
it was a concept car, and then you could buy it in 97, 96, 97. Okay. But
even going back, we talk about the Prowler being kind of a retro throwback to the to the 20s and 30s.
Yeah, 30s, yeah.
The PT Cruiser was a throwback as well, but what were they throwbacks to? They were throwbacks to just random cars. They weren't throwbacks to any specific thing.
No.
You take the Mustang, when the SN95 body style kind of disappeared, and then that new, Grant can fill in what the 197, when that 197 came out, they took that and they said, okay, we're going to try and make this look like a Mustang.
Yeah, they wanted to
30 years ago.
Some hints to 1964.
Right?
Yeah, for sure.
They wanted to do that with those cars. And then Camaro came along. And no, sorry, not Camaro. the Challenger came along and said, we want to do the same thing in 2008. We want to make this modern day Challenger look like a Hemi
Chargers
Kia.
came first. Chargers came before Challengers.
Yeah, Chargers did, but they were a 4-door. Whatever.
The only thing they really ripped off was like the fender detail.
But then some would even argue the Magnum is a bit of a throwback, right? So
yeah, but again, I've got a Chrysler Cordoba 2-door long hood sitting over here, and the Magnums of years past was one of these cars.
Right.
It was not a 4-door.
But the new Magnum, or the 07, 09, whatever Magnum,
05, I think it was
about the only thing it did kind of have some hints to what the grill design was, which is a crossbar, which Dodge grill.
But my point is that when you're trying to do retro styling, I don't believe with the Dodge Charger when that came out that was necessarily retro styling. I believe that when the Challenger came out for the 08 model year, that was retro going back to the 70s Chargers.
Sure.
Or sorry, Challengers.
Yeah. So I think there's a difference between a retro throwback and some retro styling.
Right.
Right. So I think that's where we're getting hooked on. Right.
So point is, this is going to be a great topic.
So it's a difference between a sequel and a reboot.
Yes.
Right. The Charger is a reboot. The Challenger is a sequel.
Challenger was a sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The chat is bringing up a great point. The wing windows have to come back. I mean, come on.
Ball vents. Chevy ball vents.
Who needs another beer? I do. Be right.
I say ball vents and everybody leaves.
That's kind of going to be our new signature. That's when you know the episode's over.
that'll be our safe word. Ball vents.
Well, shut her down. Well, Ryan, do you have a favorite like throwback or retro style, or like what's one that you're?
I have partial to wagons, so I do like the Magnum. Would I own one? Probably not, because they all rotted here, and I like. So that's the funny thing. Like I see, depending on what part of the world you live in, things have different reliability standards. And I know people that have Hemis and love them and will die on mountains to say how great they are. And you live here where I live, and you're replacing a manifold every 6 months to a year to 2 or 3 years, depending. My buddy's 2013 1500 Dodge, which he took very good care of, is now officially written off because the gas tank straps rotted off it, and the holes where it mounts don't exist anymore because they're part of the frame. Yay, Dodge! So there are certain things. If I lived anywhere else but here, I probably would have a big V8 wagon. I think that would be a lot of fun. I'm not sure. Did they come in a manual? I feel like the V6s were manual, but I'm not sure if the Hemi actually came in a manual.
I don't think so, but I'm not
in the challenge.
In the Magnum wagon.
Oh no, but
maybe not in this market. I feel like they did in other markets.
People did the conversions,
swap them. Yeah. No Magnums came in manual. Katrina just. So
I mean, that would check out. I'm not well versed in the Dodge world, but it would just. I mean, that's probably another good topic. At what point in time, like, I don't want the new iteration of our podcast to turn into just history lessons, but it would probably be interesting to break down, like, what point in time did manual transmission production just like really drop off a cliff? Because I feel like the Dodge Magnum would have already been in the air. It's like, 0.2% of all cars made have manuals at that point, or whatever.
In America. In Europe, manuals are still huge, right? Sure. So it depends on where you live. Like, I know Porsche is not shipping manuals anymore to North America. They're still going to make them in Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
But to that point, how many Magnums were even produced in Europe?
Right. Chrysler is pretty big in Europe.
Right, but they also doesn't mean that every model that's made is
sure. But I know they sold. I know they sold them in Australia because I follow a guy on YouTube who he lives in Australia and has a Magnum, and it has rust holes in it, which is really weird.
In Europe, they also used like a lot of your Chryslers were rebranded.
Right,
as Lancia was one of them. That the Chrysler 300 was a Lancia.
Yeah. Well, Lancia is a naughty word. In fact, you can't actually sell anything in the UK with the Lancia badge on it because that's how bad they were in the 70s and 80s. They officially banned the brand.
Yeah, and I think that we talk about getting onto certain topics and how certain things just kind of click, Ryan. That would be a good one to talk about, manual versus automatic, for a future topic or a future episode, and just kind of help differentiate between, in which regions are they still the majority, which I believe is probably most of Western Europe.
Yeah.
But you get into North America, and you cannot buy a full-size half, 3/4, or 1-ton pickup truck with a manual transmission in any brand.
No.
Which is absolutely ridiculous.
Nice catch.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, I mean, that just shows you like the skill level that this podcast operates at.
Oh, yeah.
We catch ourselves.
Point. We are.
I've got a big button over here called the bleeper.
Folks.
Well, actually, Katrina makes a good point. I know for a fact the Dodge Caravan. So our tried and true, you sold lots of them, Jason. They're, for moving families, they're a great platform.
Yep.
That was sold in Europe in a manual in a diesel.
Yeah, and there's a lot of vehicles that we have in North America that are sold in Europe with completely different drivetrains.
Yep.
So you guys recall that I did an episode on the best used car. The very first one of that series was the Chevy Cruze.
Right.
In North America, the Chevy Cruze with the 1.4 is the worst piece of crap that ever rode on the face of the planet. You go through those comments, and anybody from Europe that got the diesel says they were the best car they've ever owned.
Yep.
And the same thing with a lot of vehicles that we don't get over here in diesel. In the UK or in Europe, they get them in the diesel brand. Best cars ever.
Yep. Will's Wheel makes a point. He says that our manuals really needed today. Automatic transmissions have come a long way. Yeah, I mean, if you're sad about life and you don't want to be connected to your vehicle, by all means. I mean, why don't we just all go buy Toyota Corollas at that point?
Well,
We'll just give up.
Well, I would no, and I think that's another. Oh gosh, sorry, I thought my computer crashed for a second. I think that's another just hint at why that would be a good topic because
for sure.
Obviously, like if auto manufacturers haven't figured out how to produce at mass levels and be cost effective, like they wouldn't be doing it. So they've figured that out. The other thing is that now that a lot of the automatic transmissions are electronically controlled, like the sensation of paddle shifting is different too than just having an old slush box, right? Like, so I think Will brings up a pretty decent point. Like,
sure.
There's just a different mindset or sensation. Like, yeah, I would still rather have a manual.
But then you can go out, and if you really wanted to commit corporate suicide, you could say, how can we frig up the very best of what we've already got? Let's put a CVT in it because we're real smart.
And then Volkswagen says, "Hey, Jason, hold my beer."
Yeah, right.
And they put a PDK in it or a dual clutch gearbox, and so you
Ford did that
with the power shift.
The friggin' stupid power shift junk in the Fusions or Focuses and the Fiestas.
Basically, what it comes down to is car manufacturers need to realize ZF makes the best automatic transmissions. Just buy ZF. Yeah. Don't make your own.
But they also make great manual transmissions in the heavy trucks.
Yeah, they do. Jason.
Yeah. New word. We need T-shirts for that, Ryan.
What's that front thing in a Tesla called?
It's truck.
None of your fucking business.
ZF 8-speeds are terrible. Oh yeah, that's fine. You don't want the 8-speed. You want the 16-speed or whatever the new one is.
Oh, 16. We're going 18 eating fuller, boys.
Oh, right, yeah. Oh, my. But, yeah, and again, you look at that industry, the heavy trucks still, there's lots of automatics now, but there's still lots of people who swear by the manuals because of the efficiency.
you take like even like Allison used to be the name in transmissions for a long time. I don't believe they are anymore.
I think certain industries, like I mean, you're building a Bradley tank or a whatever it's a Bradley, right? The U.S. main battle tank.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. That has an Allison transmission.
I don't think it's a Sherman anymore.
No, it's the one that's got the jet turbine in it. It's a Bradley, I'm pretty sure. Is it a Bradley? No, it's an Abrams or an Abrams tank. Yeah, they're Allison transmissions, right?
I'm glad the guy in Newfoundland's more well versed in the Defense Department of the country
Of the
that I
United
live in
States.
than I am.
Listen, when you inevitably roll in, I want to know what's coming.
No, honestly, I assumed that intel came from. There's probably a stockpile of like 4,000 of them living up there because nobody's gonna ever think to check in Newfoundland for ours. Like,
we hide all the A-10 warthogs, just brapping everywhere.
So.
Yeah, and in
of course they'd be rusting away too, but
yeah, and
other aluminum
is sitting here running around in camouflaged friggin' Argos.
Yeah,
don't you even worry about a thing.
So what is that hidden behind those moose antlers back there?
Well, if it's
don't worry about that.
If it's the Canadian military, it's one of two vehicles. It's either the Chevy 3500, 2500 they have, which I might add they are emissions removed. Yeah, which is pretty cool, and I really want to get my hands on one. Or it's the G-Wagon. It's a Mercedes. It may or may not be armored. So
yeah,
our army's baller, right?
Do you guys follow Dave's Garage or whatever it's called on the socials? So he did a video a little while ago where this military F-350 came in, and he says, "You see that right there?" He points to this little block-off plate to the EGR. Mm-hmm. He says that EGR delete block-off plate has a Ford factory part number on it
because everywhere else in the world
for the military
it doesn't get attached. Of course, but it's funny because you look at I think the body style is the blob eye. What's the 2007 Chevy? It's that weird that's this model year that they still buy for the Canadian military. So they make
cat eye.
That's it. Yeah.
GMT 800.
Yeah, so they still make them. They make brand new ones even today, specifically for the Canadian military. They never have any issue with them. It's either a V10.
Now hold on a second.
A V8.
I guarantee you, one of the running lights doesn't work.
Oh, probably.
Absolutely
doesn't. We're not talking electrical here. We're talking engine.
It's probably the passenger side.
No, see, it's smart because they're like, it's wartime. We're going to black the lights out anyway, so they just don't put bulbs in.
Yeah,
you never know what's out.
Burn out. Those
there is nothing wrong with that truck.
Okay, but. Yeah, I know a few people I've talked to who are in the logistics and transport in the military, and they have two options. One's a 6.6 Duramax, which is pretty much everything. It's all 6.6 Duramax. And they said they also have 8.1 liter V8s. There are some of them that are gas for whatever reason. And I was like, 8.1 liters. That's a 454, isn't it?
Well, but they haven't made they stopped making those back in
exactly
2007 or 8.
So I'm guessing they have a stockpile of those motors. Probably not for this market. Or
we say they stopped making them. They stopped producing to the general public. But.
I'm sure they still make crate motors. But anyway, it's an interesting truck, and I'm always waiting to see them show up at auction.
I wonder is that Duramax still the I'm not a Duramax guru, but the LB7 isn't that the holy grail of Duramaxes, that first generation? I wonder those still LB7s?
I think they're LB7s, because they're very reliable. But again, they cut all the emissions off them, so they're super reliable.
But you take any of the Duramax diesels, the LB7s, the LBZ, the LB,
cut the emissions off it.
Take the emissions off them, and they would run forever.
Yeah,
right. But anyways,
which I argue is a more environmental thing, keeping trucks on. Anyway, we can digress very easily here. But anyway, I always thought they were kind of cool. And Katrina points out, we used to have the Iltis, which was a Bombardier Audi product. So it was designed by Audi, and it was built by Bombardier.
And it looked like a Volkswagen thing.
And it looked like a Kubel wagon from World War II.
So that's probably what connects us all here, because Bombardier had a manufacturing plant in Wichita, Kansas. So that's the That's the trio right here.
So did you guys? Did you still call Bombardier, or did you call it Bombardier?
Bombardier. It was, but it was like, I don't know if it had all, like Learjet, I think, bought them out or sistered up with them or something. Like they weren't always there. But yeah, always called it Bombardier.
And I remember Iltis when the Canadian military switched over to the G-Wagon and those Chev trucks was around 2006, 2007 is when they started. They sold off all the Iltises, and you could buy them. We called it, you get a brace of Iltises. So you'd get two that either worked or didn't, but you had a spare one for parts, and they were like $500 at the auction. And I kicked myself not having bought any of them because most of them were bought and turned into glorified side-by-sides.
What were they powered off?
1.8 liter gas engine.
Yes, Volkswagen.
But it was NATO spec, so it was all 24 volt. So you had to convert them to 12 volt if you wanted to like plug anything into the cigarette lighter or use any modern, bits on it, like bars. And that kind of
what if I want to charge my iPhone twice the speed
and melt it?
And have an iPhone-sized melted
hole in the dash
on your passenger seat.
Why is there a hole in the Iltis?
Well, let me tell you about the day.
They were made by Bombardier, so that was just natural. It just rotted from the inside out.
Yeah, the one product Bombardier made that wouldn't fall to the sky when it failed.
But again, much like we found out pretty quickly once we started going to war in Afghanistan that the Iltis was ill prepared for desert use.
Iltis.
Just the name itself doesn't really instill a lot of confidence.
No, it is paper thin.
The Iltis.
It's paper thin and made of nothing, tin cans. So they were not very armored. And the British had the same problem with the Land Rovers they were using. They were just canvas top Land Rovers, and of course, land of IEDs. Everything blew up.
Well, you know what? Being a square body guy myself, I really want to get myself into a M1009 or 1008, like the old square body 6.2 diesel, no guts, no glory. Just green square body.
That means Grant has to get a Humvee.
So as it's come up like more than once, we've sort of made references to military vehicles. The fact that Chris Fox Can Fix It Garage is in our chat and had spent some time in the service. I believe Marine Corps. You can correct me if I'm wrong, and I hope I didn't get that wrong because I know how bad that goes when I do get that wrong. But that might be a good episode too, is bring him in as a guest and we could talk kind of military specific grade vehicles and the experiences he had in them and what made them different than civilian and start to nuance some of that. I think that could be another good episode as well.
Oh, for sure.
I'm sure he can attest to it. But like anytime you see something that says military grade, most people I know in the military are like, I wouldn't buy it. anything that was used in the military is not quality material. It's provided by the lowest possible bidder, right? Yeah. So the 6.2 had the best diesel sound. Yeah, it does sound good. It sounds like a tractor. I like it.
Well,
it sounds even better with the turbo on it.
I don't know. I think the original 7.3 IDI Ford or International, whatever they were, engines, they rattled pretty good. They rocked pretty good.
Yeah, military grade means everyone else thought it sucked.
I think that was part of my motive. Is just his sense of humor is so fantastic that we just need him on this show. Period.
That's awesome. And I guess it was the Marines because he didn't correct you. So
guest co-host.
Yeah. So Chris, know that the invitation's there if you're interested for our future endeavor to be on the show.
I've always wanted a deuce and a half. I have no need for one, but the fact that you can get the multimedia engines, they run on like old used motor oil or diesel or gasoline or jet fuel or whatever. Does it combust and burn? Perfect. Fill it up. The fact that you can adjust the compression on them. And anyway, I always thought they were pretty cool.
Yeah. And no matter what you were running it for fuel, you still only got 3 miles a gallon. So hey.
It doesn't matter, but in the apocalypse, I mean, there's so many options. Right. Never forget that the transformers on telephone poles hold 100 liters of mineral oil, and it can sub in as a diesel alternative in the event of
in an apocalypse. You just got to get 25 feet in the air.
You get a hose and a gun. 22, you shoot the bottom of it. You have a funnel on the end of a hose. You hold it up. You put it right into your gas tank.
I think maybe that's another good episode. Is
vehicle.
Best diesel sound, right? Like I think I think you could go 20 minutes on, because in my opinion, like I think the bar for me is, even though I don't like mainstream and all that stuff, I mean the 5.9 liter Cummins is kind of the standard. I think the 7.3 sounds great. The Power Stroke sounds great. I think the non-Power Stroke, the just IDI, non-turbo IDIs honestly sound the most almost gas-like. Like you can put straight pipes and they're just obnoxious, like really loud. But also just the straight up, I mean, Detroit diesels, the two-stroke diesels,
Screaming Jimmys,
unique sound. Like, I mean, I think there's a whole episode there to just really talk about, like, when I had my Jeep CRD Liberty, me and a buddy, we would like take these back road adventures and just go through these minimum maintenance roads and stuff. And I remember one time, like he had mapped out this route, and we pulled over to the side of the road to just double check and make sure we were heading where we thought we were heading. And we were nearby like a farm, a cattle farm. And I pulled, of course, the diesel thing, when you're a diesel owner, you don't shut the motor off just to like act like no, it's better for the motor. I'm not going to, even though modern day common rail diesels, it'd be fine to shut it off, but you don't, because that's the diesel guy.
But also, depending on what time of year it is, you shut it off. You don't want that engine getting cold.
Yeah, well, it
might take hours for it to get back up to temperature.
It wasn't that time of year. And even if it was that temperature around here, like for a 5-minute conversation, you would have been
sure.
Fine, right? Yeah. Well, anyway, so I leave it idling, and all these cows come up to the fence, because
it's a tractor,
because it's Pavlov's law, right? Like, because that's what I grew up around, was, and they're mooing, and I just was cracking up because I was like, oh yeah, of course, they think they're getting fed.
Cows. They think they're getting fed, and you just ruined it for them. What a
sin. No, we're just off-roading, so no hay here.
My favorite diesel sound, and again, it's a bit a shock, I'm sure, is a straight piped ALH TDI. So the engine from 1998 to about 2001, 2002 in the Volkswagen Jetta, Beetle, Golf. That straight pipe with no emission system sounds. It has a burble. It sounds very much like an alien spaceship flying saucer. If you were sitting next to it, it sounds like something straight out of like First Contact or one of those. It's just a weird sound, and once you hear the turbo spool up, it gets very. It just sounds cool. It's a very different diesel noise, but the smaller engines always have a different sound. A lot of them sound like John Deere tractors. My Audi sounds like a John Deere tractor. So,
Kat, I really hope this is like sarcasm, because
why the 5.7 sounds the best? Because it makes no noise because it's broken. It's in the corner of the shed going, put a 350 in me, please, for the love of God.
Well, all right, so we're north of an hour. Do have a pizza coming out of the oven, so I think we'll start to shut this one down. But have enjoyed definitely the conversation, especially we started out absolutely zero plan, and I think the conversation was good. I think we've pulled at least 3 or 4 topics out of tonight. Ryan, hopefully you've written them all down.
I have written most of them down, yeah.
So we look forward to unveiling what the new endeavor is going to be coming up. We're saying fall. We're leaving it open, but probably fourth quarter. We'll probably unveil this fourth quarter. So, but looking forward to it. Looking forward to building the community again. So, again, if you guys in the chat have any ideas of topics you want to hear us discuss, because obviously our opinions are the best. That's why you come here.
Educated nonsense is what we're here for tonight. So if you like educated nonsense, well, we've got all kinds of it. Ryan is a wealth of useless information. He will pipe in once in a while and help us fill the gap. But yeah, the Car Guy and SixFan, we're getting back together. We've also got some help with Ryan as kind of production engineering side of things. So when we do the diesel episode, we're definitely going to have soundtracks for you guys to vote on. So make sure that Ryan, you get.
We're definitely going to do a name that engine.
Name that engine. Yeah, so,
and one of them's going to be a bag of wrenches that they just shake.
Yeah. Yeah. So the whole point of doing this isn't because we certainly need more on our plate by no means. It's just simply because we really enjoyed doing the CarrGuy SixFan show for the 7 seasons, 8 seasons. I don't know how long it was. 8 seasons.
It was almost 4 years.
I think 8 was the final one. Yeah.
Yeah, because we kind of did the 2 and then the 2.0 thing. Anyways, we had so much fun doing that, and when we decided to end the CarrGuy SixFan show, I mean, not to sound cheesy or nostalgic or anything like that, but we just kind of both felt that there was a bit of a void there, and that it's time to rehash that, relook at it, and see if we can bring things back together under a new umbrella. So it will be happening. It will not be the CarrGuy SixFan show. It will be something new. And over on the Get Out and Drive podcast YouTube channel, if you're not subscribed to that, please head on over there now. Grant left a link in the chat earlier. Maybe if somebody can find that, pop it in there again. And
it's still in my it was the last thing I copied, so paste it again.
Yep. So head on over to the Get Out and Drive YouTube channel. That's where this version or this style of show will be taking place, and we'll be sure to be letting you guys know in lots of advance of that. So
remember to hit that bell and tickle that like button. Just get in there and tickle it.
Yeah. Careful you don't get charged with anything while you're doing it.
Nah, that's fine.
Ryan.
Jeez. Did they do away with the like button on live podcasts? I'm not really sure. Of course, we're in the StreamYard interface.
I clicked it earlier when I was not in here yet.
Yeah, I see it there. We've only got 6 likes on this podcast or on this live stream right now. So if you guys haven't hit the like button yet, please head on over there and do so before Grant clicks the
end stream.
End stream button there. So,
and I assume Grant, you're going to post this up as a video to fill that necessary void. Yes,
it'll stay up. So yeah, cool. Appreciate everybody like popping in, and I know this was like short notice, and thanks Jason and Ryan for being available. I know Jason, when you did it last week, I had the last time you did it, I had a conflict, so I hated that I couldn't be there. But I was just reading Kat's comment there, but it's it's a good time, and I mean honestly, like I guess just to book in the whole conversation. So when we decided to shut down the CarrGuy SixFan show, it just felt like it had naturally run its course for the time being. Jason and I still had the desire to continue to do this in some way, shape, or form, but we wanted to make sure that it made sense to bring it back, and that it wasn't just hey, we took some time off, we're coming back, we're doing the same thing. We wanted to make sure it was like noticeably different, and tonight's show is not noticeably different from the CarrGuy SixFan show, but the upcoming endeavor, that's why we've been working with Ryan to enhance the visual ads to the experience. And again, like have never been a huge fan of this backdrop, so I'm hoping to work on that and all those things. So we want it to hit when it comes out. So
it's going to be a banger.
Yeah. So, Ryan, any last kind of closing thoughts from you? Like, I think I've said my piece.
I don't know. I think we got lots of great topics. I'm excited about some of these. I've already got arguments for most of them in the soapbox that I can stand on, so this is good. So I'll feed you my information, and you guys can battle it out in a battle royale between the two of you. But yeah, I'm excited.
As far as are we going to have guests, we don't know for sure. We did talk about having Chris on here a little bit, but I think the whole idea with guests is we may not, but we may. We don't know. It just simply depends on where the topics of conversation lead us and where it goes from that. I mean, at this point, we've kind of felt like having guests added a little bit of complication to putting a podcast together, but we're not completely opposed to having that.
And
Drew,
I would
welcome
even
to the
I would
chat.
even say that maybe, it doesn't mean you won't do other things even outside the podcast, right? Like if an opportunity presents itself, you're not going to say no to do a one-off or, do a...
I think the important thing there is, like, as long as you're subscribed to Get Out and Drive podcast, right? Because the Get Out and Drive podcast is a bigger brand, and they have opportunities like at functions like PRI, like SEMA, that interviews will naturally come from that for sure. I would also say I'm glad you brought it up, because that, as people who watch the replay, like, we would love to hear from you. Do you feel like, is that a want? Is that a desire? Is that something that, if that's something that's there's an appetite for, by all means, we'll listen to that. So anybody watching this after the fact, please leave a comment below and talk about, do you prefer guests, or do you just prefer the kind of banter, the back and forth? But I'm sure we'll, in some percentage, right? Like maybe it's every 9-to-1 ratio, we'll do just the banter and maybe one interview or something.
Yeah, and also keep in mind, because it is on the Get Out and Drive podcast, and I am a co-host over there as well, that all of our podcasts will be uploaded to the website or to the YouTube channel, so that anything that we do over there, whether it's a guest or not, gets uploaded on the YouTube channel as well. So there's going to be quite a bit of content for you guys to catch up on.
And I'm
over
going to
there.
ask Jason, where can people, besides the website and YouTube, are there any other platforms that people can listen to the Get Out and Drive podcast on?
Absolutely. So basically, anywhere you listen to your favorite podcast, Get Out and Drive is there. We upload to what's called Buzzsprout, and Buzzsprout kind of spits it out there to all the major, Spotify, to YouTube, or to
Apple and
Google, and all those
Google,
different
yes.
podcasts that are out there. So you can catch us just about anywhere that you listen to your favorite podcast.
And I assume the same will probably be done with the new project, correct?
Absolutely.
Perfect.
So with that, that's about everything you would want to possibly know about the. So stay tuned to both Jason and I's YouTube channels, as well as Instagram, and we will continue to drop little Easter eggs and hints along the way. And you'll know we'll say probably October 1, what's exactly going on. Maybe sooner, but for sure by October 1, you'll know what's going on. And we appreciate everybody joining in. We'll talk to everybody later.
To all Grant's Six fans, we'll see you next
Thanks for watching.